Conditions on the roads are reported to be deteriorating across the country as compacted snow refreezes. Met Éireann says temperatures are expected to dip as low as -15 in some places tonight. The National Roads Authority has said it will have enough salt supplies to keep the national primary routes open in the lead up to Christmas. While Dublin Airport reopened today and airlines put on extra flights, passengers continue to experience delays.
The snow eased considerably today, but the problems remained. Councils have been working continuously to clear the roads, but here in Wexford they say they've only gotten about a quarter of the salt they need. Even a local who made his own plough from a pipe has been given a contract to help. Cork motorists were also having a hard time, with local roads in particular proving challenging.
What we have here now is just pure ice for moving around, as you can see. But they have to grit, not just the main roads, but the terraces are not gritted at all.
Hauliers too say not enough is being done to keep the roads clear.
It's impacting on our ability to be able to deliver, and then obviously just the whole safety matter with other road users and pedestrians and whatnot. And as I say, we're just not getting the product into the shops and into the marketplace.
But the National Roads Authority say new shipments of salt last night and tonight will ensure plenty of stock over the holiday period.
Up to Stephen's Day, we're looking at about 23,500 tonnes, and then before the new year, into the new year, again, give me a day or two, in total we'll have about 58,000 tonnes in the country.
Met Éireann say with the exception of Leinster, most of the country will remain dry between now and Christmas Day, but they say a change of weather on St Stephen's Day will bring new challenges, including the possibility of flooding.
Well, certainly temperatures will rise significantly. We're looking at highs of 3 to 8 degrees, so it's feeling somewhat milder, but it will be wet and windy with persistent heavy rain falling, and there will be a thaw, so a lot of surface water on the ground and severe weather of a different sort, I'm afraid.
Most bus and rail services operated normally today with some delays and diversions, but ambulances are struggling and transfer times are longer. The Taoiseach paid tribute to the efforts of individuals who've helped clear the snow, but the Irish Farmers Association called for more coordination between state agencies and communities. It says its members have equipment that could help keep roads open. But for some, the snow has brought a different kind of pain. This farm has been transformed into a ski slope, bringing a little bit of San Moritz to Sligo. Samantha Librari, RTE News.
Dublin Airport has been fully operational since 8 o'clock this morning, but flight schedules have been severely disrupted. The Dublin Airport Authority said its staff worked through the night to clear the airfield of nearly 90,000 tonnes of snow.
A visible sign that backlogs are slowly being cleared as 70,000 passengers moved through Dublin Airport today. The earlier crowds thinned as some got flights, some simply left the airport to try again tomorrow, while for others the wait went on, and for some it's been an extremely long one. You're 4 days here, and have you had any news on a flight?
Yeah, I have to take a flight from Dublin to Paris tomorrow.
4 months that I don't see my family because I'm here working, and
so you just want to get home for Christmas now?
I want to go back home, yeah.
The pressure had eased somewhat by mid-afternoon after an early morning opening by the airport, and aircraft were lining up to take off once again.
The intention now is to get as many people back home to their loved ones for Christmas. We've had a relatively good day here today at Dublin Airport. The airport did open at 8 o'clock. The only cancellations we've had across the network is to Dublin routes before 8 o'clock. All of our other routes we hope to get away this evening. There are some delays, but we don't think there'll be any cancellations.
If the current clear skies persist, it's hoped most people will have got to their destinations by Christmas as airlines add capacity and extra aircraft onto routes.
We have managed to clear a sizable amount of the backlog. A lot of customers are getting to their intended destinations. What we've done today specifically is we've put on an extra flight across the Atlantic. We've an extra flight into Orlando. That aircraft will position up to Boston and take people home from Boston for Christmas. In addition to that, we're hiring in an additional transatlantic aircraft tomorrow.
But at Dublin Airport, as with many others across Europe, the sheer scale of the disruption means many will again spend the night here before finally boarding aircraft if delays and restrictions continue to ease. Ray Kennedy, RTE News, Dublin Airport.
Europe's busiest airports have reopened and airlines are trying to tackle the massive backlog caused by the severe weather. Both runways are operating at London Heathrow and the airport is operating at 2/3 normal capacity. However, many passengers caught up in the chaos are still facing travel delays. Both Charles de Gaulle in Paris and Frankfurt Airport in Germany are back in business too. However, around 25% of flights to and from Paris tomorrow are cancelled. Our reporter Ray Kennedy joins us now from Dublin Airport. Ray, what's the situation there now? Are flights generally on schedule?
There are some delays, and however the restrictions in terms of how the airport operates have eased, so the delays are really a hangover from what happened this morning when they didn't quite open on time. Now I should say there is some light snowfall resuming here at the airport, and for the past 30 minutes the runway has been closed as the de-icing machines moved in to give it a fresh layer of de-icer, and some inbound aircraft have been forced to circle in holding patterns just east of Dublin Bay. However, they're not saying that will actually amount to anything more than just adding a little bit of extra time to the delays that are in place. It is just procedure because this is quite light and there was a fear of ice, and so they will keep the airport operating into the early hours of this morning if necessary to get all the flights in. In terms of what happens then tomorrow, in terms of moving people, the airlines are adding a lot of extra flights, 18 in the case of Ryanair, a similar number in the case of Aer Lingus, but Aer Lingus will also be operating some of their larger aircraft so that they carry more people to certain destinations. Aer Lingus do have a cancellation at Heathrow in the morning, the EI 149, the first flight out. I think it's at about 10 to 7. That's because the aircraft that was intended for that flight ended up being positioned here in Dublin this evening, and they'll get it over to London in the morning and passengers will be rebooked on later flights. So still some little bits of restrictions, some delays, but tomorrow we should see a major improvement, especially for people who are still, as you saw in the report, inside Dublin Airport tonight.
And Ray, if the weather does close in again severely, and let's hope it doesn't, have the airlines any hope at all for holiday travellers?
Well, they're crossing their fingers, let's put it that way, and they say they're trying their best at the moment while the weather stays clear, in terms of the skies staying clear, to keep operating. But if the weather closes in again, they say they'll fly right up to late on Christmas Eve and into the early hours of Christmas morning and into Christmas morning itself in many cases to get people home and make sure they reach their destinations for Christmas. Now, as you know, European airspace in many sections of the world simply close at midnight on Christmas Eve, and there are no more operations until December the 26th. The major airlines here and some across Europe are prepared to break that, and their crews are also prepared to work through the night on Christmas Eve and into Christmas morning, as I say, to get people back. If the weather takes a turn for the worse again in the next 24 hours, they're hoping it won't come to that, Anne.
Ray, thank you for that. Dublin City Council has asked the Army to help clear pavements in key locations in the capital. This evening, traffic in the capital was generally light, but localised problems included heavy congestion in Blanchardstown and some other shopping areas. The freezing conditions have also highlighted the problems facing the homeless and those begging on Dublin streets.
Traffic was moving well in the capital this evening, but it was shoppers rather than commuters. Gardaí reported heavy traffic earlier at suburban centres. As weather conditions improved, Dublin Bus said it was operating a night-link service tonight, while the Lewis is putting on extra services tomorrow for those planning to travel by rail for Christmas. It's hoped that roads will have improved further tomorrow, and the council has asked the Army to help clear pavements at busy shopping and transport areas.
For the last couple of hours we've been working outside the Trinity College area, right down towards the Dart station. We have a few detachments outside hospitals as well at the moment, and they're doing the best they can in those areas.
Meanwhile, there's been complaints from businesses about the increasing numbers of beggars in the city centre, and that new vagrancy laws are urgently needed.
This is significant overseas organised begging, and it's very aggressive and it's not acceptable. It shouldn't be acceptable anywhere, the nature and the level it's happening at the moment.
But homeless charities say people do beg for good reasons. Now that Met Éireann has predicted much less snow, city traders are hoping for increased business over the festive period. John Carraine, RTE News, Dublin.
In Connemara, many roads are still in a very dangerous condition, and there has been criticism of local authorities for not acting soon enough.
Fresh supplies of salt were delivered to Galway City and County today as the NRA remains on schedule. But in Connemara, roads around Carna and Kilkieran remain treacherous and schools remain closed.
Galway County Council is gritting many roads around the area like Carna and Kilkieran, but local people say a lot of hardship could have been avoided if snowplows had been used earlier in the week.
these snowplows are available, and I think it should have been activated earlier in this case in Carna.
In Renmore, army personnel take nursing staff to rural areas. In Kilkieran, local lads lend a hand with bread deliveries in a 4x4.
The reaction from the local authority to make the roads more accessible and safer, we've been feeling very much let down in the local community here.
What they're doing is it's days too late. When this frost was expected, the salt should be put down on the road.
Teresa Mannion, RTE News, Kilkieran in Connemara.
Well, as we've seen, the unusually severe weather has caused widespread disruption over the last few weeks. However, many countries cope with similar and indeed harsher conditions every year and yet manage to keep schools and airports open and transport networks operating.
There's been widespread disruption here, but in Russia, despite the freezing conditions, it's business as usual. And at the Russian embassy today in Dublin, they explained why.
When we face -20, -30 in Moscow, -40, -50, -60 in Siberia, you can imagine, then -2, -1, it's very comfortable.
Given their long, harsh winters, the Russian authorities plan and invest heavily to keep everything running as normal.
Our airports are not shut down. Schools are shut down only starting from -25 degrees below zero. And also we can drive more safety than here because our roads are clean, because of using a lot of chemicals, of a lot of special liquids, and a lot of cleaning machines.
Russia's neighbours are also coping. Helsinki airport is open despite 67 centimetres of snow, almost a new Finnish record for December.
It has 3 runways and you concentrate to work on one runway and keep the 2 other ones open. Then of course we have the proper equipment.
There's no doubt that we could learn from them, but if we're going to learn from them as well, we're probably going to have to make investments in decision making. We're going to have to make investments in equipment and investments in resources and investments in education and training with people.
And if this weather becomes the norm, some advice from Russia and Finland may become very useful. Martina Fitzgerald, RTE News.